Vehicular entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
I don't know if it's been a good day for a drive any day this weekend. Welcome to Test Miles.
Yes! Good morning!
What is this weather we're having in Portland, Oregon?
I want to throw Prozac in the clouds.
No, you know what it is? Noah came out on Friday. It's just a movie premiere kind of stunt. And they've just deluged us.
The movie companies have pulled off a unbelievable amount of promotion for Noah this weekend.
Only in Portland and Seattle.
I can't believe how much it rained in the last 24 hours. Although there is some sign. I'm looking outside of the KXL building right now, and it looks like maybe there's some sunshine on the cards for today. So it may be a good Sunday drive. I don't know. What do you guys think? Good day for a drive?
Yes, I'm going to go drive after this. Take the vet out. Yes.
You know what? Don't let people tell you what to do. Go take your convertible out today. Pop the top.
What are you going to drive today? Oh wait, you don't have a driver's license.
Now come on, Nick.
Skateboard.
No, I'm too fat for that. I just fall over.
They have big skateboards.
Top heavy.
Welcome to the show on FM News 101. It's Test Miles. It's a Sunday morning. It's all car stuff all the time. Carfotainment is how I like to call this section of FM News 101. We have a packed show this morning. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to be talking about some big items in the news. The New York Auto Show is just around the corner. All the auto manufacturers are ramping up for the last big auto show in this auto show season. And I think I have some inside information about what cars are going to be released. We already know that the Kia Sedona minivan will be released at the show. Brad,
I'm very excited about the minivan.
Did you just do a fist pump
for a new minivan?
Give me a man card right now. I'm tearing it up.
Oh, that's been turned in years ago.
The funny thing was I was out at the Toyota dealership, Beaverton Toyota, recently, and talking to Russ Jr., and I made some joke about a minivan, and he turned around and goes, I drive a minivan. So I'm left with my tail between my legs. Dads with minivans, a whole different generation, right?
Absolutely. You go cruising around Starbucks at 10 o'clock with your brand new minivan, you're popular.
Sean likes to go to a different kind of coffee place.
Yeah, but you don't take the minivan there.
Don't say it. The older guys in minivans. Hot right now in Portland. The Kia Sedona minivan going to be shown for the first time at the New York International Auto Show. I'm also hearing inside gossip that there will be new Dodge products. It's about time for a new Challenger and Charger. That's all I have to say. Maybe time to see a new Challenger and Charger.
And isn't the rumor that one of the Challenger has more horsepower than the Viper?
That's what they're saying. But I think that's a special edition one. That's coming out. I've seen all the stories. I've had all the news released, and I haven't actually gone in depth to it. I will be doing that over the next few weeks, looking at that product that's coming out. I also offered the opportunity to drive a new BMW X5 at the New York International Auto Show. The good thing about that is BMW also announced today that they are going to be introducing an X7 and an X4. So they're filling in, soon there will be an X, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there'll be a BMW 1 Series 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Is this X-Men? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
It's something like that. The X's denote in BMW's lineup that it's an SUV and an all-wheel drive. And so they're filling in the line. There is an X1, an X3, an X5, and now they're adding an X4 and an X7. So X7 is going to be a huge SUV.
Is that going to compete with the Audi? Is that kind of that philosophy?
The Q7, that sort of size, full-size SUV. I'm guessing they are.
Yeah, I think they will too.
Couple of interesting things. I think we should do this. I think we should go to a break a little early here, and then we are going to. We have a guest on the phone. Can we go to a break now, or is it too early, Andrew?
I think we'd be cutting it a little early.
All right, let's go to our guest then. We did a story on Fox News recently about Ferrari, who are reducing the number of cars that they produce. And they have, over the last couple of years, produced 7,300 cars annually. Last year, they went to 7,000 new cars. and this year they're expected to reduce that production even more. Why? Because of things like residual value of their existing fleet. They want to boost them. They can actually make more money by selling less cars. And so we thought we'd get an expert on the phone to talk to us about car values and how they're changing, and especially with older and vintage cars. Jonathan Klinger is from Haggerty. They are the insurance company and good friends of ours who know all things vintage and especially the value of your cars. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
We're doing really well. So tell me in as short a sentence as possible what Haggerty does.
Well, you know, we specialize in classic cars, and as you talked about, we insure classic cars, but we also produce a classic car price guide that focuses on post-war classic vehicles, or in other terms, the most commonly traded classic cars. And we also produce a classic car magazine, so anything old cars.
Now, you also, I noticed online you have an app that can help, or you have a website that can help value somebody's existing classic car, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Haggerty.com/valuation tools, and any vehicle that's in our price guide, so, you know, it's just a couple of easy steps, and people can take a look at what the most current value is.
So is it something that you, like, take a picture of, or do you, like, check off criteria?
Yeah, you check off criteria, and it's easier than what you're probably thinking of when you're trying to value a modern vehicle. You know, I mean, you know, there weren't as many options typically on older cars that can affect the value. I mean, there's a handful. I mean, you take a Corvette, for example, a C2 or C3, if it has factory air conditioning, well, that's going to add 10 or 20%, and that's noted in there. But it's easier than looking at the value for a modern vehicle that's typically depreciating, whereas classic cars are either holding their value or increasing over time.
Now, we met at Pebble Beach last year for the first time, and I was astounded. I know very little about the classic car world, but immediately fell in love with what you guys do, and also some of the classic cars that you showed us during the auctions, the R&M auction there at Pebble Beach. We got to spend time with the Ferrari Nart Spider that initially, when we spoke down in Pebble Beach, we thought was going to get about $14 to $17 million. It actually sold for $27.5 million, and that was a record, right?
It was a record for, let me see what the record was. It was the record for the most ever paid at an American auction. It was the record for the most paid for a road-going car at public auction, and a couple of other. But yeah, it broke several records as far as the public auction scene goes. It is important to note that there are a handful of vehicles that have traded for even more, but those have been done very privately, very discreetly, and so there's not the public awareness that the public auction scene brings.
Now, Bloomberg had noted that some areas of classic cars, and depends where geographically you're located too, I guess, are up as much as 54%. So gold is pretty much flat. Fine art is pretty much flat. The sensible money is heading towards classic cars, right?
Yeah, and, you know, it's interesting. If you really wanted to dissect the classic car market, there's a lot of different segments. You know, I mean, as you well know, these high-end shows are what attract most of the media coverage and most of the television program that focuses on this market. And so your high-end Ferraris, Porsches in particular, certain Mercedes, you know, a lot of your European sports cars are just continuing to increase in value at a rather rapid rate. There's, you know, if there's a trade-off to that, there are some people that get a little disillusioned and think, oh, geez, I could never afford my own classic car, and that's not true at all. There's many types of vehicles that are trading in, you know, the 5- and 6-figure range that are still going up in value over time, but they don't attract near the media coverage. But yeah, I guess the simple answer to your question, yeah, classic car values as a whole are continuing to increase at a far greater rate than a lot of more traditional forms of investments.
How do you distinguish what is a classic car? I mean, it's not just an old car necessarily, is it?
Not particularly. For the most part, a classic vehicle, if you're talking from a value standpoint, meaning that a vehicle that has gone through its normal depreciation curve from the time that it was new, is bottomed out and started to increase in value over time, for the most part, you're looking at a vehicle that is from the mid-1970s and older. Now, there are a handful of examples of vehicles since then, and there's more and more cars from the late 70s and 80s and even some into the early 90s that have, again, hit the bottom of the depreciation curve, and they're starting to hold value or increase over time. But most people, it's an interesting question because for years people would say a classic car is a vehicle that's 25 years or older. Well, that doesn't exactly work anymore. There's a lot of vehicles that are 25 years old that someone's daily driver still in certain parts of the U.S., especially where you guys are. But, for mid-70s and older, with the exception of more desirable contemporary models.
I noted that there's a lot of lingo that goes along with these classic cars when you talk about them, and I can't remember exactly how it is. But if a car has a story, it's not good, right? If it has a history, it's not good, or it has a story. One of them denotes that there's missing pieces of information. Is that right?
Well, to clarify what you're getting at, what you hear oftentimes when a car is being sold, especially at an auction, you'll hear a lot of experts say you want to stay away from a storied vehicle, or you want a no stories vehicle, meaning that what that means is, the vehicle has, let's say it sustained some significant damage at some point in its life, or it has a non-original engine or something that has altered it from a more pristine example. That's what they're talking about. Now, if it comes to a story that comes to the history of the vehicle, maybe it had a famous owner, maybe it was in a famous race, maybe it was part of some significant piece of history, that's a different case. But a vehicle that has stories that go along with it that can potentially take away from its value or authenticity, that's what they're referring to. You want to stay away from a storied vehicle.
Right. I'm hearing and I'm reading stories every single day about people finding new cars that have been stored in barns for years. So there's constantly some classic cars being discovered that people didn't know were in existence. Are you ramping up for Pebble Beach again this year? I know it's a few months away, but are you guys getting ready for another record-breaking auction season?
We're just starting to see or hear what vehicles will be going for auction this year in Monterey. And our prediction overall for this year compared to the previous year is probably a 10% increase over what last year was overall. So last year, 2013, was the first time that public auctions in North America exceeded $1 billion. So public auction sales for classic cars in North America, so the U.S. and Canada, was $1.2 billion. So if you think about it, some people think, well, geez, only 10%, things are slowing down. Well, 10% increase over $1.2 billion, that's still a dramatic increase and a lot of money. So yes, it's going to be interesting. One thing that I'm personally interested in watching how things play out is for the past 5 or 6 years, every year at Monterey, the auction companies, so RM, Gooding, Bonhams, all of the auction companies that play out there, they have managed to unearth these just unbelievable cars that haven't been sold in a long time, much like that Nart Spider from last year. And, at some point, don't you think they're going to run out of just these amazing over-the-top cars? And so I don't have any data on that, but just personally, it amazes me every time that they keep bringing more and more cars to auction. So in my opinion, if anything is going to slow down the sale of these ultra-high-end cars in public auction, it isn't going to be a lack of interest. It's going to be the fact that, this small handful, 1% or less than 1% of cars on the market are available. They've been purchased by the people who've wanted them, and we'll have to wait till they come to sale again.
Jonathan, hang on a second. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back with you in just a second. We're talking classic cars.
Test Miles with automotive expert Nick Miles. Vehicular entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
And we're talking classic cars on FM News 101 on Test Miles. Jonathan Klinger's on the phone. He's the public relations manager from Haggerty. Jonathan, so you say up to 10% next year. Do you see some of these classic cars recycled? Do you see maybe there's some Duesenbergs that were at auction at one point being up for auction again in a number of years' time? Or once they're sold, do they stay sold in our lifetimes?
You know, you see both. There certainly are a handful of cars, and you hit the nail on the head of Duesenberg. So some pretty amazing pre-war American classic cars, you know, what we refer to as the custom coach-built era. So Duesenbergs, Packards, the higher-end Cadillacs. You'll see that if you go to auction on a regular basis, you might start to see the same car once every 3, 4, 5 years. And that's okay. There's certainly a type of collector out there that more and more, instead of people amassing a collection of 100 or 150 cars, they might have a very refined collection of 15 or 20, and they have a certain car they want. They purchased it, have it, enjoy it, show it, do whatever they want to do for a while, and then they'll sell it and get something differently because, I think people have realized that you can have a lot more fun with 15 or 20 cars if you're a high-end collector who likes to drive than trying to go through the hassle of keeping significantly more cars running all the time unless you have a small army of people that keep them going. Because as you're probably well aware, old cars, they're the happiest when they're driven. They don't always like that.
Yeah, you've got to drive them. If I'm going to buy, then this is the last question for you, and thanks for joining us today. If I'm going to buy a new car today, do you have any tips for me what I should look for that may be a classic in 30 years' time?
Well, the first thing, absolutely, you have to buy something that you're going to have fun with. Because if you go after it just from a speculative standpoint, then you're not going to have any fun, and then you're really going to be miserable if it doesn't work out from a financial standpoint.
Right.
You always want to get something that you're going to have fun owning first, because at the very least, you'll at least have had fun driving it. But, it's an interesting question when you look at modern vehicles. There's a few things you have to ponder for the future. What can you buy now that you think that will hold the test of time from a technological standpoint as far as support to keep them running as well?
So you mean maybe something like a Corvette or something?
Certainly, you take the new C7 Corvette, for example, the limited production versions of that, absolutely. So, I think the hot one right now, they just introduced the Z06, and what was it, at the Detroit Auto Show?
Yeah. I mean, That's a classic. That's a classic. It looks like a great race car. If we need to find out more about Haggerty, what's the website? Where do we go?
Haggerty.com, Hagerty.com.
Jonathan, you've been a wonderful guest. Hopefully we'll have you again on in the future. We have more coming up in the show, including we're going to talk about in-car audio systems. We have Kingpin here, and we're going to tell you some of the best news stories of the week. This is Test Miles.
Vehicular Entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
Welcome back. You are with FM News 101 at Test Miles. I'm Nick Miles. The crew is here. Along with me is producer Andy.
Good morning, Portland.
Sean is here.
Good morning, everyone.
Brad somehow vacated the studio. I think the minivan. Where are you, Brad?
He's trying to vacuum out of the back of his minivan right now.
He's got Cheerios
got
all
kids.
over the floor. This is a guy, we were talking about classic cars in the last segment. This is a guy that remembers when they were released. Ole's in the studio with us this morning because we're going to be talking about this in the last segment. But Ole, you've taken on the task of helping Andrew to learn to drive, right?
Yes, I have.
I don't know, I feel bad for you, how you got stooped into doing it, because I've gone through so many predecessors, and then you're just kind of stumbled upon it, and you have handled it the best of all 40 people.
I felt like I was the person for the job.
You scattered people on the roadside. All right, on the show this morning, we're going to talk about the aftermarket as far as cars are concerned. I pulled up some interesting internet figures, which means they may not be true. $307.7 billion is spent on automotive aftermarket. 4.2 million people are employed in the automotive aftermarket business, and we thought we would have a specialist come in and talk to us about aftermarket stuff. Jason owns Kingpin Audio. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You're an old hand at this radio thing, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been on.
You've been on
times.
a few radio stations.
Yeah.
So tell me what Kingpin do.
Kingpin Car and Marine Audio is a traditional stereo shop, but we kind of specialize in custom fabrication and also in the marine application as well.
So someone would bring you. Give me an example of what someone would want doing.
I mean, just like in the shop right now, we got a couple Porsches where somebody wants to upgrade the audio systems. They truly want it to sound like their home theater system, so we're doing a complete upgrade there. We've got a couple other cars in for paint protection to protect the front of the vehicle and do window film, so they want to do that.
They want nice dark glass and no one can see them.
Yeah, and stop the UV rays from damaging inside the car and things of that nature. Yeah.
Right.
So I know that you guys do high-end stuff and all that, but I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
When I get into the area of my life when I start driving, is there any way that I can have seat massagers, an ice cream cone maker, 2 TVs, and possibly a coffee maker in there?
You can. I would highly suggest not doing that, but you definitely can.
Right. I don't think I would ever be in a situation where I would have to make myself an ice cream cone going down the highway, but I just like to have options.
You like to know that you could do it.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Kingpin can do it. Kingpin Audio can do it.
So let me ask you, how much do people spend on an average doing aftermarket stuff?
I mean, your average. If I could give you some industry figures. It's a lot. It's a lot. I would say
Like 100, 500, 5,000.
I would say a good average is 500, depending on what you're doing. Yeah.
So about $500. But you've had some crazy requests, haven't you?
Yeah, we've had some pretty crazy requests.
Apart from an ice cream cone maker.
I'm going to get that, and I'm
Yeah.
going to come to Jason. I'm only going to come to you, brother, because I want.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because here's the twist. I want to do swirl chocolate and vanilla. Other people can't do that. But I know you guys can.
Horrible
He's gotta do
sights.
donuts,
I have horrible. I have visions of you being pulled over, and the officer's going to say, "What were you doing?" I was just having an
That's
ice
how I'm
cream.
going to get out of the ticket. I'm going to offer him ice cream cone.
You've thought ahead, haven't you?
Yep.
So what sort of crazy requests have you had?
I think the biggest one that was just last week, we had a client that came in and wanted a 55-inch LED television. They want to drop down from the headliner.
What?
And they want to do it in the front of the car as well.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Ford truck.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I'm going to do that in a minute.
So they probably want to pull over somewhere and have the screen come
I'm
down.
sure that they wanted
Because that
to
would
go
take
down
up,
the road.
that would take up most of the windshield, right?
It would take up, and they wanted it as a drop down, so you would literally have to be out of the car in order to have it to drop down.
All right.
So are there certain regulations, like, because I notice in some of the cars, like when Nick test drives a car, it won't let him do certain things, like navigation-wise, or interact with it because the car's running. Is there certain guidelines you guys have to do? Like, he wouldn't be able to drop the screen down if the car's going, but he can if it stopped?
He could if he had it stopped. Yes, we would tie in some sort of a thing for the power function to only come on when the parking brake was on.
Mm-hmm.
It is against the law to have any kind of video in motion while driving down the road.
Okay.
It's a pretty hefty fine. as
So
well.
for extra money, could he drop it down in the middle of the freeway?
He could probably find somebody. We don't do that. It's too big of a liability. And
Yeah, no, you guys are reputable. I know you guys wouldn't do that, but
So tell me a little bit about how the industry has changed since the 1980s, because I do remember when car stereos were a certain size, you'd pull one out, you'd slot another one in that vacated hole, you'd upgrade your speaker systems, but it seems like we're a million miles from there. Are people actually ripping out these manufactured one pieces now and putting different systems in, or how does it work?
Not so much lately, and that's what's been really cool is watching the industry change along with what the OEM manufacturers are doing. And it's brought out some really great products that really help with sound quality. Unless the radio is broken for some reason, we're typically not pulling the radios out anymore. They've got the connectivity that everybody's looking for. But what it is we do a processor that gives you 32 bands of EQ per channel along with time alignment. So it will take the information from the radio output, summarize it, de-equalize it, give us a clean unclipped signal out, and then allows us to add amplifiers and speakers to it.
So they're taking what's existing in there and just going nuts.
Correct.
And I've looked at speaker prices. Like I did some research over the holiday period last year, looking at speakers that you could put into your car. thinking that you would buy a speaker for maybe $50, $75, $100. I mean, speakers tend to start about $100 and go up to mortgage payments.
They definitely do. They definitely do. And that goes to the quality of reproducing that sound. There's a lot of technology in it because if you think like a home audio or home speaker in a cabinet, it's got a structure built there. It's tuned to a certain frequency. The off-axis response is directly in front of you, whereas a car is the worst possible environment. So the actual manufacturer of some of these upper-end speakers for the cars are actually have a lot more technology in them than say like a home side of speakers because they have to look at the off-axis response of the speakers.
So if you really want your car to sound great and to have all these functions, it's obviously easy to do with you. I know that I begrudge paying $2,000 extra for a navigation system, and I can actually go out and buy an aftermarket navigation system that does all these fancy things that the ones that they have like in the new Audi A3 that comes out of the dash, and that's all part of these new units that you can put in the car, right? So I probably could spend $2,000 with you and get an incredible system as opposed to spending $2,000 and just getting navigation in a car.
That would be correct.
And so what sort of things do you do? What sort of things can cars do now? I mean, presumably you can upgrade for vehicles that don't have Navi and Bluetooth and all those type of things. But apart from the sound quality, what other gadgets are people buying to put in cars?
We see a lot of people want to integrate some sort of tablets into cars. So we do a lot of iPad mini where we're integrating into the vehicle, including an area where the radio is. We're doing an Escalade right now.
So you put an iPad right in the dash?
Yeah. We've taken like this Escalade that we've taken the factory radio suitcase, what we call the suitcase, out, and we have now custom blended a mount for an iPad, and that's running through a processor that gets the sound through the system itself.
But when is the day coming where I can actually have what's on my cell phone appear on the screen in the car?
That day exists right now, but it's kind of limited.
What?
It's kind of limited to the phone companies releasing the apps for it. There's a platform called MirrorLink where it's on Android based. There's 93 manufacturers that are working with between cell phones, aftermarket, and OEM car manufacturers are part of this. Right now it's just waiting for releases of the phones. It's all the legalities of it to what the app will allow you to pull up on that screen.
I want my technology now. That's the one thing I want. What I do on my phone, I want to appear on the head unit. That's what I really want.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody wants.
Sounds like that day is really close. Why don't you stick around to the end of the show? We're going to talk a little bit about some things that happen in the news, and I'd love you to put your input in. If people want to get hold of Kingpin and find out more about what you do, where do we go?
You can always check out our Facebook page at Kingpin Car Audio on Facebook, or our website at kingpincaraudio.com.
All right, we can do both of those. When we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of really interesting stories in the news. The team will be here, and Jason will be here. We will do a more in-depth look at what's going on in the auto industry, and apparently GM have frozen sales of one of its models this weekend. We'll have all that news on FM News 101 coming up. This is Test Miles. I'm Nick Miles on a Sunday morning.
Vehicular entertainment. Test Miles with Nick Miles.
A few interesting stories in the news that we'd like to bring you on Test Miles FM News 101 this morning on KXL. Chevrolet have stopped sales of one of their Cruze models this weekend, and the reason why is not apparent. But GM have issued a stop sale notice on the popular subcompact Chevy Cruze, and essentially means that deliveries will be stopped of only one of the types. It's the 1.4-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine. And according to Alan Adler, who is a spokesperson for GM, they're not mentioning why it has been issued, the stop sale order, but they are not selling any this weekend. So if you were heading to a dealership to buy one, unfortunately the 1.4-liter turbocharged is not for sale. Anyone have any ideas why? You think it's not for sale?
I think it's the new, smarter GM. They're not going to screw around. There's some little glitch somewhere. And I'm guessing if they're not selling it, it's not a little glitch. Good point.
It's a big glitch. So something they don't like about the car that is going on. Brad, what have you been driving this week?
I have been into a car that you're familiar with, is the new Honda Civic, and I had the EXL with the navigation on it. So it's the second kind of remake of the 2012 Civic that was overwhelmingly underwhelming. And they do little tweaks. Honda tends to take their time doing some things, but they respond a little quicker this time. And they have a new CVT, which is pretty interesting, to replace their existing automatic transmission. And I like the CVT that they've got. It's a little smoother than most and kind of less noisy. The one thing I did hate, and I think I'm maybe not overstating the hate, is the interface system with the stereo. It's kind of an iPad touch thing, but it's cumbersome at best.
Oh, that newfangled technology. What
No, it
outwits
is
the
not
older
that.
gentlemen's.
Yes, no.
And Sean, what have you been driving this week?
This week I've been driving the Kia Cadenza, and after driving this vehicle, I fell in love with it and want it.
Was it great?
No, it wasn't great. It's phenomenal. How about that?
For those people that don't know, Sean is not allowed to use the word great in any of his reviews because it's like, the car's great.
Great. No, it's an awesome car. I fell in love with it and
Great.
actually would love
Awesome
to.
is just another great, Sean.
I said phenomenal earlier.
Ooh, look at you with your dictionary words.
Yeah, I had to look it up and then sound it out for a while.
The interestingly enough, the Cadenza came around because Kia wanted, or some people who are getting their Optimas all kitted out with it, almost every option. They wanted to go up a level, and there wasn't anywhere to go. So the Cadenza was born. And I think they've done a really good job with it. I think people don't. There are a challenger brand. People don't see Kia as a brand which does luxury cars, but they are more and more with the K900 and the Cadenza venturing into that field.
Well, after getting in the Cadenza, I mean, it felt like a German car. Everything in there is solid. It's well built. It has a powerful V6 that's pushing 300 horsepower, which I thought it had a V8 in it for a little bit until I actually looked it up.
They make big changes to those cars, and you don't realize some of the times that it's a Korean brand, right?
Yeah, I mean, this car has basically every option that you'd want in a $60,000 car.
We've taken the badges off Kias before and stumped people who didn't know.
I know that we did. We taped up every badge, took it downtown, and asked people, well, what's this car? And everyone's like, is it an Audi? Is it a Lexus?
I was driving the Range Rover Sport this week, and, along with Jessica Simpson and Paris Hilton, David Beckham, and Claudia Schiffer, those people are the sort of caliber of people that are driving this vehicle. It's actually interesting. I didn't know this, but previous versions of the Range Rover Sport were actually built on the LR4 platform, which is a completely different platform. And it's a big, solid platform. But this time they went to aluminum body for the 2014, now an 8-speed transmission. It's lighter by 800 pounds. Who wouldn't like to lose 800 pounds, right?
Why are you looking at me?
For no particular reason. V6, they have a V6 now, which is supercharged, which I really like. It does do 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds, 375 horsepower, but I do miss that V8, which does 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. When you're talking about a vehicle the size, an SUV the size of a Range Rover, that's pretty impressive with 510 horsepower. Although these aren't for the faint of heart. $62,000 starting price. The one I was driving, which had the V6 supercharged engine, is $73,000. Which, I mean, I understand now why you have to have Hollywood money when you go buy one of these vehicles. So those are fun test drives this week. I don't know. Next week, I think. Sean and I are heading to Cadillac. We're going to go to Savannah, Georgia, to drive the new Escalade. Are you looking forward to that?
I am. I have. You've been in the Denali and the Tahoe, so this is my first time in the new body style platform, and
Yeah, they've done a
I'm
great
really
job.
excited for it.
What do you drive on a daily basis, Jason?
I usually take one of our loaner cars. So I've got a classic car, and I've got a '04 Dodge that's fully built.
What's your classic? I think I've seen you drive that before.
It's a 1920 Hudson Essex Rat Rod.
That's beautiful.
And you how often do you drive it?
When it's sunny out, so not
Right,
it's
right.
Oregon.
Have you had it valued?
I haven't.
We should see if Haggerty would value it for you, because I bet it's. I mean, I guess those sort of cars, because you've probably done so much aftermarket stuff to it, right?
It does. But it's got a Hemi motor in it, a firepower. So
have you tried the 0 to 60 times to see what it does?
no, I'm a little scared. It's like
Just scared to wreck it.
well, the motor is only like 3 feet from you, and it stares right at you. So
Right.
it's completely exposed, but it's very torquey.
And is the roof lowered?
No, but the car's completely dumped on the ground on air rides.
Right.
Yeah.
So speed bumps are not its friend.
Not at fast speeds, no.
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 I actually we should do a test drive with you on that. That sounds like fun. We often take our audio equipment into vehicles and do test drives. inside vehicles. So that will be a lot of fun. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us on TestMiles this week. We actually have a load of stuff on our website. Do feel free to go there and see some of the videos that we do for our news stations around the country. Andrew, are you going to have some driving lessons this next week?
I am. I think I'm going to hang out with my buddy Oli over here, and I'm going to get some more hours in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my license and be a man.
That's what it takes? Just a license?
Well, that's all I've been told. Yeah.
Thanks to Jonathan from Haggerty, to Jason from Kingpin Audio, to Sean, to Oli, to Andrew, and to Brad, and to Joe and our faithful news team. You're listening to TestMiles. This is FM News 101. Join us at testmiles.com on Facebook and the Twitter.
This is Test Miles with automotive expert Nick Miles.